Greetings, and welcome to episode 3 of The Inside Job with Philip Cox, the podcast edition. And this is going to be part 3. We've been hanging out in this space of ritual and what it means to ritualize things, what it means to concretize the mundane aspects of our life, to slow down and actually pay attention, and as if even the most boring, monotonous details of our life, and treat those things as if they were actually holy. And then this amazing thing happens when we do that, and they actually become holy when we give ourselves to the details of our life. And we've been talking, the first week we talked about the importance of the details. The next week we talked about welcoming all of the difficult details and the little offenses and the things, the quicksand of the soul, we called it. And this week we're going to get very practical, and this one's called Just Practicing, returning to the act of ritual, part 3. And the reality is, we don't want just more information, because what has not helped our society, it seems, has been we have more information available at our fingertips than any other civilization of all time and throughout history. And it's helping us with some things, but when it comes to meaning, when it comes to purpose, when it comes to joy, when it comes to finding that thing that you just are desperate to find at the end of the day, to go, what was all of this for? All this work, all this effort, all this frustration, what is it for? Information simply having everything at our fingertips doesn't seem to be giving us wisdom. Knowledge is not the same thing as wisdom. We said this in the first week, that knowledge and information tells us what, wisdom gives us the why, and that's what brings the difference. So we don't want even this thing on ritual, we don't just simply want more information for information's sake. Oh, now I know more stuff about Leviticus or more stuff about ritual. Woohoo! That doesn't matter. What we need is to ground our knowledge in actual life, in real lived experience. And if we can't do that, it might be fun, it might be a cool hobby, but it's not transformative. You're not going to change. You're not going to find more joy, peace, patience, all those things, if you can't find a way to take the knowledge, the stuff we know, that we should know, and ground it in the details of everyday life. We also don't need more stuff to put on where our lives are busting at the seams with busyness, with fullness. Most of it's really good stuff. Some of it's not, but that's okay. What we need is, what can we do with the stuff that's already here now? That's what this post is about. Just practicing. And right off the top, the Old Corner Shop is going to get another mention. That's a great cafe in Margate. If you're in North Brisbane, go to the Old Corner Shop in Margate. They have sponsored these first 3 posts without knowing it. And I'm so grateful that they let me come and sit and do my writing there. But we start just practicing, returning to the act of ritual, part 3. I'm sitting here at the Old Corner Shop on another Saturday morning, attempting to integrate what I've been writing about for the past few weeks. Before walking in, I had a difficult phone conversation with a friend, and I'm currently attempting to welcome the conversation. That was last week's post. To welcome that conversation while also trying to see my coffee and this very short window that I have to write. I write while I'm waiting for my son. He's in training for baseball, so I have 2 hours to write. Trying to see my coffee and this short window I have to write. I'm trying to see it as a sacred gift, as we talked about in the first week, and I'm trying to welcome the conversation that we talked about in the second week. But I'm having a hard time doing it. Why? I've just had this really difficult conversation, and it's really hard to welcome that kind of a conversation. And I say today, it feels harder than most. And sometimes you just have to name that. Sometimes it's harder than other times, and that is okay. What's not okay is pretending. The inside job, this is not about pretending. It's about naming. We're going to talk about naming soon. We have to name what's true about our experience to move forward. Today feels harder than most. The conversation sort of knocked the wind out of my sails, and so now I look around me in hopes of finding something to awaken the muse within. And as it turns out, knowing is easier than doing. That's what we just talked about. So writing is way more fun than actually living out what I've written. And that is true, true, true. But that's the work, isn't it? And what a gift. What a gift to be reminded. If we can see things are a gift, just start. If you have something difficult in your world, just start saying, oh, that's a gift. And then you might have to figure out why it's a gift and how it's a gift, but it's a gift. But that's the real work, isn't it? And what a gift to be reminded that all these ideas that I'm writing about here must stay practical for actual life. What a concept. What a concept is actually going to touch my real life. And I am a recipient of this gift even now as I type in real time. Now that I think of it, this act of taking a belief or an ideal and turning it into a lived experience is precisely the point of rituals. Walter Brueggemann, who is a Goliath-sized giant in the field of Old Testament scholarship, he's prolific. I think he's written like 90 books. He's probably written 10 since I saw last. Walter Brueggemann says that rituals give us a concrete example of what is otherwise just an idealized belief. In other words, it grounds it in reality. It gives a concrete, think about concrete, how solid that is. It gives a concrete example of what otherwise is just an idea or an idealized belief. Beliefs live up in the ether where it's conceptual. It can be a bit fluid and a bit not definite. This ritual gives a belief or an idea or a thought, a concrete example of what it looks like to live that out. Without these grounded practices to convert our spiritual ideas into real life, we run the risk of missing out on genuine transformation. The transformation and formation process goes from our head to our heart and then must be grounded in and through our bodies into a concrete action. That's good. I'm going to read that again. Without these grounded practices to convert our spiritual ideals into real life, we run the risk of missing out on genuine transformation. The transformation and formation process goes from our head to our heart and then must be grounded in and through our bodies into concrete action. And I've got a little footnote there that says, we as the church need to continue working towards a healthy theology of the body if we want to live a fully integrated life of body, heart, and mind. But that's a topic for another day. We're just stacking up topics to come back to, which is great. We need to live, our spirituality needs to be an integrated whole of body, heart, and mind. And look what shows up just in time, I write. I just looked up to see a glass of cool water sitting right in front of me. It's been here the whole time that I've been writing, but I only now actually saw it. And that's written like that on purpose. I actually saw it, even though it's been here the whole time. What are you seeing? What do you see? What do you see around you? There might be something that could bring inspiration. There might be something that could be ritualized, and it's right in front of you the whole time, and you just haven't seen it yet. Our prayer needs to be so many times, Lord, give me the eyes to see the way that you see. Jesus walked around. Jesus did a lot of walking. This is an aside. Jesus did a lot of walking, and when he walked, the pace of a walk allows you to see things. He saw lilies of the field. He saw birds of the air, and he saw fig trees, and he would just say, oh, look at that. The kingdom is like that. And he was able to see things. So the question is, am I seeing? We're seeing, but are we actually seeing what we're seeing? Does that make sense? You want to see what you see. So I've been writing the whole time. This glass of water is there. I just now saw it, and it's given me the inspiration I needed. So in the spirit of actually doing this stuff, I want to offer 4 very practical rituals that I use regularly. And these are ones that I actually use on a regular basis. And with each, I'll say a bit about the what, the why, and the how. And perhaps something here will resonate with you too. Happy concretizing. Good word, concretizing. And here we go. Phil's 4 practices. Number 1, drinking water. How mundane is that? Taking a drink of water is one of the most basic things that we do every day. So much so, in fact, that we often fully take it for granted. Oh, and I've got another footnote. If you want to keep fresh, clean water flowing in parts of the world that don't have access to this basic human necessity, then you can go over to charitywater.org who do amazing work in getting water and digging wells all over the world. They're amazing, so check them out. So how could we ritualize a drink of water? Can a drink of water, as mundane, as everyday as it is, can it be ritualized? Well, of course it can. Here's how. As you take a drink, become present, and that word gets thrown around all over the place. All that means is pay close attention. Become present, aka pay close attention to every drink and the refreshment that it brings. Now, while you're drinking, imagine God flowing through all the parched spaces in your soul and awakening them to life again. Even though it only takes a moment to drink a glass of water, notice the rejuvenation that you feel after you do this short practice. The ideal underneath, remember this is about concretizing an ideal. The ideal, quite simply, I want to both remember and remain expectant for the Spirit's acts of new creation within me. The Spirit's acts of new creation within me. The Spirit is the animating energy of life that's always performing acts of new creation. That's what the Spirit is doing all the time. And I want to remember that that's happening and remain expectant that that can happen within me, especially when life seems to be leaving me a bit dry and a bit cracked, which it can for all of us at different times. And so we drink water, and as that water is going down our throat, we say a short prayer in our mind. You can't say it while you're drinking water. You'll choke. So say it in your mind. A short prayer. Lord, just as my body is refreshed by this water, also refresh my soul through the presence of your Spirit. And that's it. You've just made a ritual out of drinking water. You've just concretized an ideal of this beautiful ideal of the Spirit's rejuvenating power through drinking a glass of water. And I usually remember to do this once or twice, maybe several times a week, and it never fails to leave me feeling a bit more reinvigorated and rejuvenated than before I do it. So simple, so easy, right there. Number 2 is driving. We talk a lot about driving in the offense one and the ritualizing. It's something we do. We're behind the wheel all the time. So this is a good one, but it's a tricky one for many people, I write. As I mentioned last week, road rage comes upon the best of us and is usually, if not always, rooted in the fact that the person in the other car or the person driving the car you're in isn't doing, I put that one in good in case your spouse is a backseat driver or next to you seat driver. The fact that the person in the other car or the person in the car that you're driving in isn't doing what I want them to be doing, or you're not doing what they want them to be doing. Their ideal is encroaching on my will and my ideal. The ideal here is that I want to be a person who believes the best about others and gives them the benefit of the doubt, extending to others the same grace that I have so often received. And so this practice, while we're driving, this practice ritualizes that ideal by grounding it in my car while I feverishly attempt to keep my car between the ditches, which is a good place to keep your car. That's a saying from my dad. Keep it between the ditches. Here is the practice. Assume that they had a very good reason for what they just did. We don't understand it, and that is okay. We are not in their mind or their heart or their circumstance, but we are assuming that they are doing the best they can with the resources available to them at that moment. I promise, if you can get a handle on this one, it will transform your life. At least the life you live behind the wheel of a car, if you're an angry driver especially. So a fun little mantra I scream at full voice while motoring down the highway is, it's okay. I don't have to get my way. It's okay. I don't have to get my way. You can scream that one while you're learning how to not get your way. And that's a fun one. Number 3, difficult conversations and arguments. Being real. This is just part of life, part of relationships. You're going to get in difficult conversations. You're going to have arguments. It's okay. But we can ritualize these things and we can grow through them. So I write, as we talked about in last week's post, offense rapidly derails our growth. When we're offended by someone, especially those closest to us, the line of rational thinking and kindness can get obscured quickly. This is when disagreements and robust conversations can turn to bitterness, and in our unchecked frustrations, we can go too far. I am the world's worst at this and have been. And so, this is the practice that I have learned. The practice which I learned from the late great Dallas Willard, or Dallas Willard. If you're in the States, it's Dallas Willard. If you're in Australia, it's Dallas Willard. And I've been here for so long in Australia now, I say Dallas Willard. Yeah, that's what happens. The late, great Dallas Willard is the practice that he called giving up the right to have the last word. Doesn't that just make your skin crawl, the thought of that? Giving up the right to have the last word. Oof, that's a tricky one. And it is a tricky one. The ideal here is that I want to become the kind of person who doesn't think he's right all the time. And the kind of person who wants to prefer the other person to myself, assuming that they have something to teach me. And even if I'm convinced I am right, being willing to suspend that rightness for the sake of the deeper thing, which is the relationship. There's a little bit of honesty. This one has been the hardest for me, and I've actually been practicing this practice for the better part of a decade now. I lived a lot of my earlier years very frustrated, very argumentative, very harshly critical of others, even friends that I loved dearly. And for years, I was a bit of a relational wrecking ball. And I've also seen friends and family of mine over the years who would trade joy and friendships to be right. And from my perspective, it was never a good trade for them or for me. So a simple prayer for these moments is, I release my need to have the last word and the need to defend myself. A brief note here is giving up the last word is not the same thing as stonewalling. And if you don't know what stonewalling is, I've got a link in the article to a great Gottman Institute page on stonewalling. It's not the same as stonewalling or being passive aggressive. And I've got a link to that too. It's not being that. It's not shutting ourselves down, shutting our heart down, and making the other person suffer through our silence. That's not what we're doing. We're practicing this ritual with as much kindness and as much grace as we can find in that moment. We are simply saying, I'm not going to let myself keep this cycle, this argumentative being right cycle. I'm not going to perpetuate that anymore. Even if they misunderstand what I've said, even if I don't like what they've just said, I'm giving up the right to keep the cycle going so I can get my last little dig in. That's what it's giving up. We're not stonewalling or being passive aggressive. Really important there. And number 4, our final one. I hope this has been helpful and practical. This is the simplest one. This and drinking water. The ritual of removing your sunglasses or your reading glasses. Just taking them off. That can be ritualized. How good is that? I love the simplicity of this one. I write, the practice when you remove your glasses or sunglasses, ritualize it by remembering that we see life through a filter. How good is that? A lifetime of history made up of our deepest loves and our deepest wounds shapes the way we see the world. Sometimes these filters are wonderfully helpful, and other times they become really problematic. Sometimes we need help in removing some filters, aka unhelpful narratives, and other times we simply need to be aware of the filter we carry. One very basic element of doing biblical exegesis which is just like unpacking a particular passage in like excruciating detail, is you have to name the filter that you are reading through. And I won't go into all the different types, but you have to own, hey, I'm looking at this passage through this particular lens. And if you don't do that, if you can't name your filter, it means you're not actually doing good work. So sometimes it's not even about removing the filter. It's just about acknowledging, I'm looking through this lens. This is the lens I'm choosing to look at this passage through. I'm looking at this life through, this situation through. We all have a filter. That's a bit of that Enneagram stuff we talked about last week. We're seeing things from a certain perspective, and we just need to acknowledge that. So when I take my sunglasses off, it's just reminding me, oh yeah, I'm either removing a lens that's shading reality, or I'm seeing things really clearly now, but in a minute I might see those same things a bit more unclearly, a bit more blurry. Maybe I'm seeing something blurry and I put something on my glasses and all of a sudden I see it a bit more clearly. So this simple act reminds us that we're not able to see everything exactly as it is. And so we need to use this moment to pray for God to begin highlighting the areas where our filters are no longer serving us or serving those around us. And we pray for the courage to address our blind spots as they are revealed to us. So, simple prayer here. Lord, help me see the way I see the world, and give me the courage to try and see it more clearly. Now, I use the word see 3 times there, and it's on purpose. But this is going back to seeing the glass of water, seeing the thing I'm actually seeing. So help me see the way that I see the world, and give me the courage to try to see it more clearly. And I just wrap it up by saying, well, those are just a few ways I've found in my attempt to live my life as a prayer. And it's great to have have your prayer time that you set aside, and that's great, and you should do that. Absolutely. This is my morning time, my afternoon time, my going on a walk time, my time sitting on a mountain, my time in my prayer closet, whatever that place looks like for you. That's a wonderful and great thing. But we are encouraged, invited to live this whole life of prayer. And so how do I do that? I do it through drinking my water. I do it through a prayer when I take my glasses off. I do it by concretizing and ritualizing all these little elements throughout my day, finding a way to make the mundane details of my life sacred. I say, I'd love to hear how you go at practicing these things, and I really would. Again, there's a link here in the article. You can message me or Phil at theinsidejob.com.au. And I would love to hear how you're practicing these. And I'd love to hear how you find ways as you begin to see the things around you, how you begin to find the divine in the details of your life. So hit me up, phil@theinsidejob.com.au, or click the link inside of the actual article. And also, hey, this is really exciting. This publication also reached over 50 subscribers today. And this was Saturday last week, which is really cool. And it's even more than that now. And I'm not a big numbers person. It doesn't matter. If it's one or if it's just for me, that's all. I'm doing this because it's so much fun. But it was such a cool marker to see that. And it's wild and it's so much fun. And so I just say that to say thanks for coming on the adventure with me. I would love for you to share it if it's fun for you. Peace and so much joy. And I'll see you next time.